Magic today, starting with rookie decks. We're going to explain the basics of the game using these Card Kingdom provided decks that they build. They don't have anything flashy in them, they're just basic cards to learn the basics of Magic. So first, if you want to pick, Ellen, which one you would like to play with first?
Can I do green?
Green? Okay. I will go with red. Seems befitting for me. So these other three we'll play with another time. But for now, just red versus green. Okay. So as you wrap up shuffling your library, we're going to move to the next step, which is... We're going to move to the next step, which is choosing who goes first. Normally you can use a dice or a coin flip. I don't have any coins on me though, but what we're going to do is a fun little app I like to use called Chwazi. It's a free app that you can download. Basically what we do is we take one finger each and we place it on the screen and hold it there. It will randomly select one of us to go first, and that would be me. So I will go first. Yeah. You can question all you want, but I didn't make the app, so it's not rigged for me. Anyway, so now we're going to draw our 7 cards. This is going to make up our hand. You draw from the top of your library, not from the bottom. Always 7. Now, you can look at your hand.
Wait. Yeah, okay.
So now we have our 7 cards in hand. We'll look at them. In this case, I'm going to play with my hand revealed just so, for starters, people can see what I'm working with. As you can see, I only have 1 land. I do not want this hand. This is a terrible hand. So what I can do is called a mulligan. And with a mulligan, essentially, is what I'm doing is I'm shuffling my hand back into my library and then drawing a new hand. In typical games, you will draw 1 less card. You would... That was old rules, sorry. I have to refresh my memory on this. The current ruling on mulligans is you draw 7, and for each time you've mulliganed, you have to put back 1 card under your library. So basically, I'm going from 7 cards to now drawing 7, but then putting 1 back at the bottom of my library. So if I don't like this hand again, I mulligan and put back 2 cards. So in this case, I've got 3 lands. That's about where I would say I want to be. I've got 2 cards already in my hand I can play on turn 3, assuming I don't hit any more lands going forward. So with this, I'm good with my hand. Ellen, are you good with your hand?
No.
Okay, so you're going to mulligan as well?
Yeah.
Okay. I always recommend about 3 lands in your starting hand. 4 is probably fine too. Depending on the type of deck you build, 2 lands is maybe okay if you're in like an aggro deck, which is basically cheap cost cards with a low mana curve. So you only need like 2 lands to start the game and you'll be fine the rest of the game. Then there's cards or decks that require a lot of mana, so you would want like 4 lands in your starting hand for that case. I don't think you'll ever want 1, 5, 6, or 7 lands in your starting hand. Those are numbers where if you see that in your hand, you probably want to mulligan because you're going to flood, or you're going to just have nothing to do that first like couple turns except play lands. Or in the case of the 1 land hand, you're just not going to be able to play anything. So it's always nice to be able to organize your starting hand. So I usually go left side lands, most expensive cards far right, and then 2 in the middle. If you play against an opponent in like competitive format, I would recommend actually shuffling your hand around, because if they say play the card duress, they get to look at your hand and discard a card. If they pick a card that says pick a card at random from your hand, by shuffling your hand, suddenly there's less probability that they're going to hit something that you want to keep.
Okay, and then I put 1 back at the bottom of my library.
Oh, speaking of which, I forgot to do that myself. So I'm going to take this 1 5-drop card and put it to the bottom of my library. You don't have to reveal the card you put at the bottom of your library. I'm just doing it simply to teach the viewers. Okay, so I won the Chwazi finger thing, so I'm going to start us off with a mountain, and with these cool play mats that Card Kingdom provides, I'm going to put in my little land station. And with that, I have no play here, so I will pass the turn. Note here that I did not draw a card on turn 1. Since I am player 1 going first, I do not draw a card. The person who goes second in a game does draw a card on the beginning of their turn. So Ellen, is the beginning of your turn.
Okay. I drew a card. I'm going to play a forest.
Okay. And do you have any additional plays?
I don't.
Okay. Now we'll proceed back to my turn. So it's kind of cut off from the screen here, but we have untap, upkeep, draw, main phase, combat, second main, and end step. These are what make up a turn. So what I'm going through is essentially...
It's also on the rookie deck, like helper cards.
Yes, the rookie decks, if you do invest in them, they're a good way to learn the game. They come with the phases on a card, and they also come with a couple mechanics that you might encounter within these decks.
Oh, those are our lives now?
Yes, those are our lives. I didn't realize it also chooses a player at random, so I'm rotating that so it says me. So now it's my turn. So it's untap, there's nothing to untap. Upkeep, there's nothing to do in my upkeep. So I draw my card for turn, and now I'm in my main phase. So I'm going to play a second mountain, and I'm going to look at my hand, and I see nothing I can play, so I will pass the turn.
Alright, I've got nothing to untap or upkeep.
So you'll draw.
Draw a card sloppily. Then I'm going to play a forest. And for 2 forests, I'm going to tap 2 forests and play a snare spinner.
Okay.
Which is a spider with reach. She's a 1/3.
Okay, and it has abilities there. So reach is it's a creature that doesn't evade creatures on the ground. It's kind of hard to explain this, but there's creatures with flying, and then there's creatures without flying. If you're a creature without flying, basically anything can block you, with the exception of like a couple mechanics that we will get into later. With reach, though, the creature itself doesn't have flying, but it can block creatures that do have flying. So it's like, as in the case of this card, a spider with a web, and it's catching flying creatures in its web. As well as it has a second ability on there. Ellen, do you want to read that off?
Whenever Snare Spinner blocks a creature with flying, Snare Spinner gets +2/+0 until end of turn.
Okay, so what it's basically saying is when it blocks a creature that does have flying, it gets a boost in power that allows it to kill, most likely, the creature it's blocking. However, if it blocks a creature that doesn't have flying, it does not get that pump. Alright, so any other plays? You're tapped out, so I assume no?
No, I have nothing else.
Okay, so as you've noted, or may have noticed, we can only play 1 land per turn. You can play as many creatures as you can as long as you have the mana to produce. So each land taps for a mana. She's tapped 2 to play the 2 costs. On the creatures, you have 2 symbols. One, which is the color of mana it requires, which is a forest. The lands make it really easy to learn. Then there's a number next to it. If it has this number, it means you can use any type of mana to pay for that cost. So in this case, she can use a forest and say like a mountain, or a forest and a plains to cover the cost of this, as long as she paid 1 forest into the cost. Alright, so we're going over to my turn. I have nothing to untap, I have no upkeep, and I draw for turn. So now I'm going to play a mountain, and I am also going to play a card as well. I'm going to tap all 3 of my mountains, and I'm going to cast a Raging Crunch. It's a 4/3 that can't attack alone. It's a beast creature. So it's a big guy, but he kind of needs help to be able to attack. He can still block like normal, though. I will then pass my turn.
Okay, I'm going to untap my lands. Got nothing to upkeep, so I'll draw a card. Gonna play forest. And then I am going to 2 forests to play a Leafkin Druid.
Okay. And that is a 0/3. So basically, it can attack still, but it won't do any damage if it hits anything. However, it can also tap for a green mana, or if you, Ellen, control 4 or more creatures, including itself, it will tap for 2 green mana instead of 1. So they basically act like lands. However, they can die to combat or other means where lands cannot. So it's a nice way to ramp your deck, since you can only play 1 land per turn, and allows you to get bigger things out earlier in the game rather than later in the game. Would you like to attack, or would you like to just hold
No,
back?
I'll pass turn.
Okay, so now it is my turn. So I will untap, I will draw for turn, and I will proceed to not draw a land, and I have no lands in hand, which is really awkward. But what I can do is I can tap 3 and play another Raging Crunch. Now, while this can attack this turn because Summoning Sickness is no longer applicable, this still does have Summoning Sickness. So I cannot attack this turn, but next turn I can attack with both because it meets the stipulation of not attacking alone.
Okay.
I realize I also have not explained Summoning Sickness. If a creature comes into play, the first turn it comes into play, it cannot attack. The second turn and beyond, it's fine to attack right away. If it has an ability called Haste, it ignores that stipulation, where it can just attack right away then. I will pass turn.
Okay. I'll untap. Got nothing to upkeep. Draw a card. I'm going to play a forest. And then with all 4 forests, I'm going to play a Grazing Whiptail, which is a 3/4 dinosaur with reach.
Okay. So, like the spider, it can block flyers, but it doesn't have any additional information. It is, however, a 3/4, so it's a bigger threat on the board. Anything additional to that?
I am going to attack with my spider.
Okay. So we're going to be going...
Wait, no.
Never mind.
No, I've been committed. I'm in.
You sure?
I'm committed.
So, okay, if
I
you're
have
committed...
regrets, but I'm committed.
Here's where we're going to have combat. The first time in the game, we're going to have combat. This is where we have a person declare their attackers on their turn, and then we have declare blockers phase. So I'm going to declare this as my blocker, and this is where we basically take the power and their toughness and compare. So she's having her creature do 1 damage to my 3, which does not kill my creature. My creature is doing 4 damage to her 3, which is. So combat comes to an end, creature dies, my creature lives. In circumstances like this, I recommend reading the board, making sure you understand what your cards do and what their cards do, and then choosing it, the right choice. Obviously,
that wasn't the choice I meant to make.
Yes, it's fine. This is a learning process, but this is also a good example of, how combat works. Mistakes will happen. It's okay. Sometimes it will cost you the game. Sometimes it won't. The best thing to do is just forget it and move forward. So any additional moves?
No, that will be it.
Okay, so I'm going to untap my 3 lands. I'm going to draw my card for turn. I drew into a mountain, so I will play that. I will then... So this card I'm about to play is an instant, which means I can play it on her turn, I can play it on my turn, I can play it basically whenever I want, as long as I have the mana to play it. But based on our board states, I'm going to play it now. I'm going to cast Chandra's Outburst. It deals 4 damage to target creature and 2 damage to the creature's controller. So I'm going to do 4 damage to her creature here, which will kill it.
Yeah.
She will then take 2 damage.
Bummer.
So now that is out of the way, she only has 1 blocker now. And I can attack with both of my creatures without worry. So what I'm going to do is go to combat and swing with both my 4/3s.
What does this do if it blocks, since it doesn't have any?
So basically, if it blocks, what it does is it deals 0 damage to my creature deals 4 damage to it. It will die, however, you'll take less damage because of that.
I'll let it absorb some of the damage.
So you are going to block?
Yeah.
Okay, so then that will die, and then you'll take 4 damage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops,
Oops,
that's not the right
yeah,
way.
there you go. So you were at 18 before because of the Chandra's Outrage. Alright, perfect. So you've taken your damage, this goes back to here, and then that's my turn, so I will pass to you.
Untap. Draw. I am going to tap 2 forests to play a snare spinner, which is that 1/3 spider with reach, and he gets +2/+0 when he blocks a creature with flying.
Okay, so we're familiar with this guy, we've seen him before. Any additional plays?
No, that's it.
Okay. So based on the environment we see here, Ellen is on the defensive, I am on the offense. It's not always a deal to be on the defensive, but sometimes if you bide your time, you can get through difficult situations. Unfortunately, this is not one of those times.
Thanks, honey.
Yes, I'm going to cast a Chandra's Outrage again, so I will do 4 damage to the creature and 2 to Ellen. She
I
has
have a
combat
response,
tricks. Yes,
however.
that is perfectly responsible. So I'm going to explain real quick. There's this thing called the stack. Essentially, when a person plays a spell, it goes initially on the stack before it enters play. So what's happening here is I'm casting this, she's responding to it. So go ahead.
For 1 forest, I'm going to play a giant growth on my spider, so he'll get +3/+3 until end of turn and not die to Chandra's Outrage.
Okay, so to explain the stack, it goes in the order of plays like this. So I play this, she
Wait,
plays
that's
this.
how it
Wait,
works?
nope,
Okay.
listen. So it goes like this goes on the stack, this goes on the stack. Then, with nothing else going on, it resolves in the order on top first, that happens, then this happens. So what's going to happen is her 1/3 will become a 4/6 until end of turn, then it will take 4 damage, and she will take 2. So her creature, like she said, will live. She'll take the 2 damage, that goes to the graveyard, and then we can proceed forward. So damage stays on a creature until the end of the turn. So currently it's got 4 onto it. So essentially you could look at it as a 4/2, yes. So if it takes just 2 more damage, it will die. With that said, I still will attack with both my creatures.
I'll block with my spider and then take 4 damage myself.
Yes, and in this case, since your creature's power is 4, it will kill my creature.
Fine.
Nice.
But then I take 4 damage.
Yes, you do take 4 damage, and then it is your turn.
Okay.
That was a good example of the stack and also combat tricks.
It's not looking good for me.
Well, you got one of my creatures off the board, and I can't attack now with this.
Okay.
My wife's trademark cackle.
I will use 2 forests and play a Leafkin Druid.
Okay.
And I can't... Well, I wouldn't want to anyway. But I can't tap this turn because it has Summoning Sickness.
Exactly. So, like I was saying with the creatures that come in the first turn, they can't attack. They also can't activate abilities that require them to tap. If it said, pay 2 mana and add a green mana, okay, yeah, you can do that because it's not requiring it to tap. Basically, if it requires tapping, you cannot do it turn 1. Alright, so anything else?
No.
Okay. So I'm tapping my stuff. I will draw for turn. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay 2 mana and cast a Pack Mastiff. Or Mastiff? Mastiff?
Mastiff.
Mastiff. It's a 2/2, and it has an ability where I pay 1 red and 1 of any color to give each creature I control named Pack Mastiff +1/+0. So in this case, I could activate this right away if I wanted to, because it's not actually requiring it to tap. However, there's no real reason to do this unless it's blocking or I'm attacking. I will then pay another 2 mana, and I will cast a second one. So now I have 2 of them. I will then pass turn because this guy cannot attack.
I will untap those. Draw. Careful cards. Okay.
I was waiting for you to get that like 7/7 creature out that I can't deal with.
Well, I'm not drawing into mana right now.
Well, I know that feeling.
So I'm going to use 3 forests for Arlen's Wolf, which is a 3/2 wolf that can't be blocked with creatures with power 2 or less.
So essentially these guys. This guy can still block because he's got 4 power.
Yes. And then I'm going to pass turn. Yes.
Okay. I will untap and then I will draw for turn. I'm going to pay. Pause here. I'm going to pay 1. I'm going to cast Shock. It deals 2 damage to any target. It would normally kill this, but if you have a response, we can do the stack thing again.
So the thing I would do plays out first?
Yes, so I put this on the stack, so it's at the bottom. Anything that goes on top of it resolves first, and then the second thing resolves.
I am going to use 1 forest for a sorcery, which is Prey Upon. So...
see, now this is where... Okay.
Oh, I can't.
To interrupt you, yeah, sorry. So it's my turn. Sorceries can only be played during your turn. Instants, like the Giant Growth, can be played at any time. So that's going to go back to your hand. That would be a player error. It cannot legally be done, so just be aware of that. Instants, like it says, can be played instantly at any time. Sorceries are only on your turn. There are cards that you might come across that say you can play instants and sorceries, or sorceries at any time you can play instants, but that's not going to come up in this game. So, with nothing to respond to,
no, I have no response.
all right, your creature will die. This will go to my graveyard.
That was a good wolf.
It was a good wolf. I will go to combat. I'm going to swing with the house.
That's gonna be my
So that
death,
would be
I think.
8 there. Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're
I'll
kind of
just-
put in a situation where you have to block.
Okay, so I'll block with that, I guess. and
I
keep it
recommend
going
block the
short.
big guy there.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pay 2 to activate this ability once. So these guys are going to get +1/+0. So it puts them at 6 total damage. So what we're going to do is we'll let combat resolve. So combat happens, that guy dies, you take 6.
Thanks.
And one of the joys of red mana or magic is burn spells. I'm going to shock Ellen now for 2 damage and kill her.
Thank you, honey.
And that is our game. So, to recap, we had combat moments, we had combat tricks where we played instants on top of each other to respond to each other's actions. We had creatures that could tap for mana, although they never did. And we also both ran into some land issues midway through the game. With that said, that is gonna, I guess, do it for our first video. This is just kind of a sampling of what's to come. As we get better at this, our video quality will also improve. Our games will improve, and my narrations will improve. Hopefully, God help us if it doesn't. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.